video is an introduction to conflict management. Today you're going to learn about a process for resolving a conflict. The process on this chart includes 3 people, the supervisor and 2 people who are in conflict. Let's go ahead and get started. You will find in your worksheets, I'm going to scroll down below, step-by-step process that we're going through and a place to write. So I'll be referring to this worksheet as we go through. Step 1, the supervisor should tell the people why they're at the meeting. So basically you say, thank you for coming today, you're valuable employees, and that's why I want to help the 2 of you resolve your conflict. From the worksheet, you can also see some other ideas of things that you might say, appropriate language to use, etc. The first step is to get each of the individuals to vent. We want them to talk about their problem. So I'm going to pick the first person or the person who really looks like they want to talk, and I'm going to make that person person A. So person A will state the situation, we'll talk about the problem as they see it, and hopefully person B will listen. Now, we're going to do an interesting thing here to make them listen. So let's call person A John and person B Joan. John, please state the situation as you see it, or the problem that you see. Now, as John's talking, I'm taking notes, and hopefully Joan is listening. When John's done, I'll say, thank you, John. Now, Joan, would you please repeat what John said? Now, if Joan can't do that, for example, it's likely that Joan wasn't really listening, I'll say, that's okay, Joan. John, would you please repeat a summary of what you said? Okay, Joan, are you ready? Please repeat what John said. John, is that correct? Now, if John says it's not correct, then John can fix it at that time. No, this is what I said. Now John has vented, has listed his side of the problem, and I'm going to let Joan have her turn. Joan, it's your turn. Would you please tell the situation or the problem as you see it? And John, listen carefully. When Joan's done, I'll say, John, please repeat what Joan said, and then Joan, is that correct? Now I have all the notes I need, and I can make a summary. Now, it's likely that John exaggerated and Joan exaggerated, but I'm going to leave that in my notes. So I might say something like, okay, John, you stated that Joan always does blah, blah, blah. And Joan, you stated that John never listens. At that time, if they want me to fix my notes, if Joan says, no, I didn't mean never, I meant usually. And John could say, no, I didn't mean always, I meant most of the time. I can change my notes. And at this point, then, I can summarize. Okay, so let me summarize then. John, what you were saying is this, and Joan, what you were saying is this. Is that correct? All right, they both had a chance to vent, and I'm just sticking to the facts. I'm keeping their opinions and their attitudes and their emotions out of it. I just want to look at the facts at this time. The next point that we're going to do is I'm going to stick them together in brainstorming. So I want to know what ideas they have to resolve it. So as fast as you can, would you please tell me anything you think that could help this situation? Now John might say, fire Joan, and Joan might say, fire John. I'm going to write those down. I'll write down everything that is said. At the end of the 2 minutes, or however many minutes I give to brainstorming, I'm going to allow them to cross off whichever things they do not want to consider. And of course, John and Joan do not want to be fired, so they'll cross those off. I'm going to get them to participate, to pick an idea that they would both like to try. Now, I want to make it real clear here. It's very, very important that the supervisor does not contribute to brainstorming or selection of ideas. You cannot participate in that. It has to be John and Joan's idea of what they'd like to try. Even if you have the best possible idea on your brain, you may not say it. But when it comes time to crossing it off, if it violates the company policy, like let's just not wear steel-toed boots, you as a supervisor can cross that off saying, sorry, OSHA requires this. Or if they say, just buy 10 new computers. You can cross it off and say our budget will not allow this. But there should be plenty there to consider. If they haven't given enough ideas, you have to take a short break and then resume brainstorming. All right, let's move on. So after they've crossed off the ones they don't want to consider, then they are now talking to each other and with each other to try to solve this problem. What would they like to try? Now, what they'd like to try may or may not solve the problem. It might just help, but that's okay. We're just trying to make the situation better. So when we're at point 7, what we've done is they have had active listening. They vented and listened actively to each other, and they brainstormed possible ideas, and then they've even said something that they would agree to try to make the situation better. The next thing we need is the commitment phase. And the commitment phase basically is what commitment does each person have. So I'm going to start as a supervisor, and I'm going to say, okay, my phase of commitment says that I will set a meeting. In fact, let's have a meeting on Friday at 10 o'clock in this office. And Joan, as part of this process, you are going to do what? She'll state it. And John, you're going to do what? Great. Okay, so our follow-up meeting is Friday at 10 a.m. in this office. That's the end of this process. You can use this worksheet to take notes. You'll see that it has each of the steps. Now, this step-by-step process can also be used for just 2 people, if it's just 2 people who have a conflict, and I will talk about that in part 2. That's it.